Storm looks to be circling directly into the Charleston area this evening, and this is brand new video from the downtown's French Quarter neighborhood from just in the past hour. Meteorologist Elisa Raffa is live in Charleston for us this afternoon, braving the stormy conditions.
And Elisa, we just got confirmation in the last hour of that tornado in nearby Berkeley County.
Yes, I was able to confirm that with the National Weather Service. It actually flipped over a car and people got video of it, and the National Weather Service was able to confirm that it was a weak and brief tornado. And we still have warnings that are popping off in these outer bands, because as these outer bands kind of make landfall, you've got that land friction, you've got the tropical moisture, and all of this twist in the system still, so we could still get some of those weak and brief spin-offs. Rain and flooding is also a concern here. Streets, you can see behind me, are just inundated. We're in that French Quarter neighborhood here in Charleston, if you're familiar with it at all. And we've had a couple of cars try to drive through this, and I actually stopped a few of them and told them, please don't do it, because it actually is pretty deep, hard to tell, and it doesn't take much water to really get those cars to go. Now, this is just the beginning of the flood threat, honestly. We are in low tide, just coming out of it. We're still expecting high tide to come at about 8:25 tonight, and that will also come with about 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. What's also special about this high tide is we're looking at king tides. There's a full moon tonight, so it's got an extra boost between it being a full moon. We got the full moon, we have storm surge of 3 to 5 feet possible, and we still have some swells from Franklin that's also sitting offshore. So they're really worried about flooding in an area that's already prone to it, especially with sea level rise. Charleston has really tried to be on the forefront as far as that flooding goes here. So we've got that. We still have tropical storm force winds that could pick up, as we still have a Category 1 hurricane rolling through, and those winds could pick up tonight as we go into the evening. Governor McMaster saying that there's no need for evacuations, but he really just wants everyone to kind of stay on guard. Andrew?
As the storm makes its way through the Carolinas, the Charleston area is expected to get hit hard with high winds and heavy rain.
Let's get back out to meteorologist Elisa Raffa live in Charleston. Elisa, what's changed since the last time we checked in with you about a half hour ago?
Look, we've been in and out of outer bands here all day. We've had that heavy rain coming in and out. We've even had multiple tornado warnings, one tornado confirmed just to the north here of Charleston. But flooding is a huge concern going into tonight because we haven't hit high tide yet. I want to show you what this street looks, where we're at. I mean, some of the flooding is already pretty severe, and we're seeing people drive through it. We've actually told a couple of people, turn around, please don't come through this way. You can see where we've got this road just completely inundated. Really tough to see how deep it is. You see the sandbags covering that business door there. We've seen a lot of that. And then if you look even farther down the block, this car has been parked here and the tires are almost halfway covered. So, I mean, just a little bit more flooding, and we're looking at that water getting dangerously close to getting inside that car. Another business or home here with all of those sandbags as people try to keep the water out. But Charleston does flood, right? It has that flooding problem. As those sea levels continue to rise, they know it's going to get worse, which is why they try to take out some of the storm drains. They tried to clean them out the last couple of days preparing for this. And what officials are worried about is that high tide that's going to come in around 8:25. That will come in with 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. We also still have swells from Franklin as well. So this, you know, and the king tide too. We have the full moon tonight, so that high tide is even higher than usual. So worried about some of that flooding that could come in tonight with tropical storm force winds, and we'll be here to keep you updated as it happens. For now, reporting live in Charleston, meteorologist Elisa Raffa. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Elisa.
We're going to head down to Charleston. Meteorologist Elisa Raffa is down there just kind of giving us a picture of what things are looking like in the downtown area. Elisa.
Yeah, Tara, we're here in that French Quarter neighborhood, if you're familiar with Charleston, and there's already flooding here, and this was from low tide most of the day. They actually got some flooding from high tide yesterday, and that was before the core of Idalia even got close, because we've actually still have Franklin that has been churning up some swells and rip currents as well. Wind gusts still picking up here, so as you mentioned, even though we are now calling it a tropical storm, it's really just that the center is looking a little bit different now that it's over over land. Those impacts, though, for the coast are still real, and they still will pick up as we go into the overnight hours. We're still worried about major flooding here in Charleston because we have not had high tide yet. We have high tide. We have the onshore flow of the tropical storm still that could still bring in 3 or so feet of storm surge, and we have that king tide from the full moon. So they're very worried about flooding, especially in these vulnerable areas that are susceptible to it here in Charleston. I mean, lots of residences and businesses have these sandbags kind of lined up, and a lot of them are already soaked. So things that we'll have to continue to watch as we go into the overnight hours. Kiddos in Charleston today wrapped up school early at around noon. Classes are canceled, or at least virtual, going into tomorrow because, again, they're worried about what it might look like going into tomorrow morning as far as that flooding goes, because we'll keep the onshore flow overnight and we'll have that high tide. So things to still be concerned about, even though the name is a little bit different. But, man, the track of this and how it maintained hurricane strength most of the day, Andrew, I mean it really kept its act together as far as that organization. When usually when you see it come into land, it will start to kind of decrease in strength, but I mean, we had that hurricane strength for quite a while today. These gusts are picking up, right? We still have tropical storm force winds that extend 200 miles out from the center. So still could get pretty gusty here overnight. And we're also worried about the flooding and the high tide. We have streets here, corners, that are already flooded here in Charleston. And I'm going to take you on a walk down this block where we have businesses that have piled up sandbags because they're worried about this. Sorry, it's a little bit rainy out here. But we have businesses that are worried about the water getting into their establishments from the street, which a lot of this flood water has got garbage in them. We also have, if you hear the noise, the plastic bags on the plants to protect some of those plants from some of that heavy rain. So what the concern is for tonight is we still have to get through high tide. This has all been low tide. High tide tonight happens at about 8:25, and we still have that 3 to 5 feet of storm surge that could come through because we still have this push and the swirl of Idalia that needs to come through as well. The National Weather Service in Charleston says that this could be one of the top 10 crests in recorded history for the Charleston harbor. Could get close to 9 feet. 7 feet is their flood stage where they start to see problems. 9 feet would be major flooding. So we're staying here overnight to see what that damage is, if there is any, how bad it gets, because, again, still worried about some of that flooding going into the overnight as we start to get into high tide. For now, reporting live in Charleston, meteorologist Elisa Raffa, Queen City News.
And you're looking live over the Charleston Battery tonight. Idalia made landfall in the Sunshine State of Florida today, unleashing devastation along the wide stretch of the Gulf Coast. Parts of the Carolinas are seeing its impact. Queen City News team is all over this big story. Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane tracking the storm's path. Reporter Shakira Speaks live in Chesterfield County, monitoring the conditions there.
But first, let's go to meteorologist and climate specialist Elisa Raffa. The video we just saw, Lisa, you're in the French Quarter. We saw that storm surge right there in Charleston, that area already dealing with the flooding.
Yeah, and that came from low tide earlier today as we continue to find this onshore flow. We had heavy rain too, and Charleston is very susceptible to flooding. The winds are picking up here. Remember, tropical storm force winds are still possible here through the overnight. They extend 200 miles out from the center, so it is continuing to pick up as far as the wind. We've been tracking this flooding here all day. Again, that happened with some rain and low tide. The National Weather Service in Charleston actually just tweeting right now that Charleston Harbor is just about to get to 7 feet. 7 feet is their flood stage, okay? Anything more than that, things start to get pretty severe as far as the flooding. And what's happening tonight is we have high tide, which is a little bit more elevated than usual because we have a full moon, right? We're calling it a king tide. King tide happens at 8:25. Plus, we have Idalia. As you can see, the wind's still whipping, right? So that's going to still pull onshore flow. That push of the storm surge, still 3 to 5 feet in the forecast there. So we've got kind of a double whammy going on, right? Happening at the same time. Peak of high tide with a full moon and Idalia. So what we're expecting here is to find these crests for Charleston Harbor. The National Weather Service thinks that they could be in the top 10 crests in recorded history. They could be that high. So they actually just tweeted out, if you have any cars that you know are in flood-prone areas in downtown Charleston, make sure you get them out of the way because they are expecting the water to continue to rise overnight, could get to 9 feet, which again could be in top 10 for recorded history for that level and could cause some flooding around here. So we'll be with you through tonight and into tomorrow morning, to keep an eye on this flooding, because just because it says tropical storm doesn't mean the impacts end, right? We're still dealing with the water coming inland from the ocean, and we still have multiple tornado warnings that have continued to spawn from those outer bands. Tara?
And we begin with meteorologist Elisa Raffa live in Charleston tonight. Elisa, you're already seeing some major flooding there.
Yeah, that's something that I've been watching closely all day since this morning, and it's because we had a high tide coming in at the same time as the storm surge. And what was so unique about this high tide is we have this beautiful full moon out there tonight. That makes the high tide a king tide, essentially saying it's even higher than what a regular high tide would be. That time to come in the same time as the storm surge, and we were worried about that, and our worries came through fruition. You're looking at video from the Battery in Charleston where it broke records for a tide this evening. That ocean water came in so far. Flood stage in that area for the Charleston Harbor is 7 feet. Well, we peaked at 9.23 feet, which makes it the 5th highest peak on record for the Charleston Harbor. So an incredibly high tide, again, even for that area. The records go back to 1921. So we had again, what you're looking at is that ocean water that's coming in. On the railing, I was able to see the ocean water just kind of smacking along the railing kind of ferociously as it came in, again, with the high tide and the storm surge. That area is not too far from the College of Charleston, so a lot of students were kind of walking around and, trying to see what was going on. And I asked them, does this happen often? And the Battery area does flood often, right? The ocean's right there. It's a low-lying city. The water, Charleston floods, right? We know that. But a lot of the students say that the last couple of hurricanes that they've been through in the Charleston area, they haven't seen flooding like that. So, again, we do know that it broke record books, 5th highest peak of tide there for the Charleston Harbor, and we'll have to wait to see how long it takes for that to recede going into tomorrow morning. We'll probably go check it out there.
Elisa, a couple questions for you. One, first, can you tell us where are you in the downtown area? I know Charleston pretty well. It looks like you're in the French Quarter, but I can't really tell. And then also, I'm noticing from your live shot that you're seeing lights that are on around you, so that's kind of a good news. I checked with Dominion Energy. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of power outages in the area. Talk to us about why that is with such a powerful storm.
Yeah, so the power outage question is interesting. The power outages, there are some out there, but they're not as widespread and as many because for us, this wasn't a wind maker, right? This was always about water. This was a water maker. We were always worried about the heavy rain and the storm surge and the tide coming in at the coast. So that doesn't do as much when it comes to some of the power outages as much as wind would do. I do know that there are some, I've seen some action on Twitter, some Dominion workers that are working on some power outages around here, because what I can tell you, our partners at our Charleston sister station here are reporting that Folly Beach is cut off. There's so much flooding and debris that to go from downtown Charleston to Folly Beach, you cannot. So they're working on trying to get those areas open back up and get power back on for anyone who is flooded and doesn't have that power right now. But yeah, cut off to some of those beaches, Modesto Beach too, I believe.
All right, Elisa Raffa, thank you. We can really see the flooding there behind her as where you're standing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad tonight, Elisa. Thanks. Let's get